Good afternoon, my Encompass University training class. My name's Mitch. My information is scrolling across the bottom of the screen here, along with my phone number. Today, we're going to talk to you about basic refrigerator knowledge. We're getting into the refrigeration season. I already had a friend call me. I apologize. I have something in my throat. Um, I already had a friend call me and say, "Hey, listen, can you come by and look at my ice maker? It's not working." Well, this is beginning of refrigeration season, so I wouldn't expect anything less. Um, so we're going to talk about just some basic refrigerator knowledge, and then we're going to swap over. And since right now is a fine time to be talking about it, we're going to talk about ice makers as part of the refrigerator. So if you see right here, we're looking at a at an evaporator, um, and it's looks like it's very good. You can tell that it has not had it has a very even um, it has a very even pattern on it, so that's great. Some of the times you're going to walk in and it's going to look like this. I mean, my goodness, what a mess we have right here. Will I get proper cooling? Nope, absolutely not. Um, and we're going to get into a little bit of what happens. Why does this happen? Okay, so here's one that's for a side by side. You can really tell this is an old GE. You can tell GE was known for ice balling with this. If you went to the very top, you literally the it would have a huge ball of ice on it. So there was a fix for that back then, and we can look at it, and if we see this problem right here, what does that tell us? You can look on the very bottom on the right hand side, and you can put a comment in the post. Tell me, what's the matter with this refrigerator? Is it good? Will it cool? So somebody type in an answer to that question. And if you think it's going to cool, what would if you think it's going to cool, what would your diagnosis be? Well, you're right. You're not going to get it. It's not going to cool. It's not going to cool. What's my problem probably going to be if I have this pattern in an ice maker? Could be a restriction. You're exactly right, Nathan. What else could it be? Yep, could be a refrigerant leak. You're exactly right. That's exactly one of those two things is what it's going to be 99 times out of 100. It's either going to be a refrigerant leak or it's going to be a refrigerant. Now, let's talk a second about refrigerant leaks, okay? So, well, let's back that up just a second. So, as I walk in, and the complaint of what we're seeing is we're there could be a problem. So it's not cooling. So I'm going to get there. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to look for Warner's split gaskets. I'm going to check the defrost thermostat, make sure that it's working properly, that it's cutting on and off when it should. Is it located in the proper location? If it's not in the proper location, what do I do? That's a pretty simple thing to fix. How would I fix it if I have a faulty defrost thermostat? Okay, I'm just going to move it down so that it does not go, it doesn't shut it doesn't stop defrosting. On one of on the picture that I just showed you from that GE ice maker, that's one of the things that you had to do was you had to first make sure that the heater was coming on. If the heater was coming on, you then took and moved that terminator to make sure that to make sure that it did not shut off in the before it got totally defrosted. This is an over under refrigerator, and the same problem you're going to have right there. It's terminating probably too fast. Okay, so one of the other things that I'm going to check, I'm going to pull the toe plate off, and I'm going to look to see about to see if the condenser is clogged. Okay, that's going to give me a weird thing happen. If I don't take care of that, the first thing that's going to happen, probably my condenser fan motor is going to go, and then if my condenser fan motor gets slowed down, I'm probably going to lose a compressor, or at least one of the components in the compressor. Okay, so then I'm going to, like I say, I might have a leak in the system. We're going to go through that a little closer in just a minute. Then we could have had defective compressor parts. Okay, so here are the 5 components that you need to check. Okay, they're calling it a thermo disc. I call it a frost terminator. Then we have a thermal fuse. Then we have a defrost timer that I need to check, make sure I'm getting power to. If I was getting that totally frozen one, tells me it probably didn't go into defrost. I also probably am going to check that defrost heater and make sure that I'm going to ohm it out and see that I have I get the proper ohms so that I can eliminate the defrost heater. Then, of course, if the evaporator fan motor is obstructed or it's not working at all, that would also cause my problem. So that's 5 of the other components that I need to check. Okay, here's a good example of coils. I have seen them much dirtier than this, but here's a good example of condenser coils that really need to be cleaned. That says evaporator, but it's a condenser coil. So that was a typo on my part. Okay. Once again, here's my bad frost pattern. So that tells me I have a leak probably, or a restriction in the system. So there's 3 ways basically to try to find a leak. You can't really see it, but the technician that was working on this one found a leak in the evaporator. What can I do if I find a leak in the evaporator? If I have R600, am I gonna fire my torch up and see if and see about fixing it from there? Absolutely not. Never fire up a torch if I find a leak. Okay, on an R600 unit. If I have a R134A unit, I can fire it up. To me, it's a whole lot easier for me as a technician to just do everything the same, and I can use 134A. I can use a which is not on Thursday's class. That's going to be our R600 lock ring class. So I can use my lock ring system and fix this problem and get whenever I get it taken care of, I'm done. Okay. One of the other things that I can use to try to how this guy was checking. You can't really tell it, but he's spraying a soap bubble solution on it and looking for it to bubble. You can do that. One of the other things, here's a picture of it right here. See him spraying, looking for a leak in it. One of the other things that I can do is I can use my snubber. If I have a combustible gas, I can use my combustible gas snubber, and I can check for a leak there. The problem that you have with using this is that you can't. It's not really as effective as soap bubbles because it judges the combustible gas that's in the air. So we have a little problem. So you can start with a combustible gas and find it, get close to it, and then I can find it exactly with soap bubbles. One of the other things that I can do is that I actually can take and purge the system of refrigerant, and I can put nitrogen in it and check and see if I have drop a couple of drops of dye in it, and then I can find the dye as it goes through. Okay. So does anybody have any questions so far about what we have talked about? Okay, we're going to go ahead and we're going to move along because this is going to be probably a pretty lengthy class. Okay, so once again, thank you. This is the Encompass virtual training, and it's sponsored by Encompass Simply Parts. Okay, they are the leading provider of parts and after sales services. We're going to have a little demonstration at the very end, and I'm going to ask you to hold on and watch it and make sure that you have everything that you need. And you can always text me or send me an email. Either way, you can do that. Okay. So if you have ever been in one of my classes, doesn't matter whether it's live or if it's a virtual training class. Okay. The thing that I try to really hammer into people's heads, don't cause damages. Okay. Damage issues to flooring is the most common thing that we have. Okay. If I am not moving this refrigerator, I'm good and I don't have to do anything. But if I have to pull this refrigerator out, this is actual pictures of damages that have caused. Okay. The one on the left side, you can tell is a wooden floor. The technician pulled this out. There was something hung up underneath it. Whenever he started pulling it out and pushing it back, and you can look at it and tell that it pulled out, pushed back, pulled out, and you have just huge mess. Okay, this was about a $8,000 repair that we never got any money on because the technician didn't follow the simple procedure that I tell you to follow. So we're going to talk about that in just a minute. The one in the center, that one was even more expensive because this was a piece of linoleum, and the customer, I had a guy go out and try to fix it. The customer was not happy with it. You could tell that it wasn't, it didn't adhere properly. So we're going to have to, I had to go and have the whole floor replaced. The one on the right over here, that is a water leak. This will kill you every single time because not only would it damage the floor, even though it is tile here, it's going to damage the cabinets. If this is in a kitchen and it's above a basement, we're going to have some damage there. We're going to just have problems everywhere. So do what I ask you to do right here. Put down flooring protection. Okay. There's 3 different kinds of flooring protection. Okay. There's a full sheet of flooring. Okay. I can do that on my refrigerator. That's fine. That will work. or I can use it not only on a refrigerator, I can use it on a dishwasher, on a range, on a washer or a dryer. That's a full sheet. The problem with a full sheet is that whenever I'm riding around with it in my truck, I have to make sure that it has it doesn't get dirt and grime and grit all over it, because all I'm going to do is if I don't take care of the dirt, grime, and grit and keep it in a protected surface, I'm going to have the same problem as if I didn't use it. Okay. The other one, this is the style that I had. This actually comes rolled up. There is a brand new one that one of the technicians I just trained brought me out to his truck, and it looked like a jigsaw puzzle. It literally was basically a 2 foot, 3 foot section that looks like a jigsaw puzzle. You put it down as much as you need, and it's great. The problem with having it in a roll, all I can do is unroll it to a certain point, and then I have to worry about it. So I have to be careful. With that. Now we have the ultimate flooring protection. You can buy this at a Compass, and this is an air sled. If I was a technician and I was going to be a technician for my life, I would definitely invest in this air sled. It got to be too old whenever I was coming up. I had already turned 45, and I was transitioning over from a technician to an instructor. So, but it is great to have. Not only can I do a refrigerator or a range, this will actually pick up a load of it will pick up a full washer. Okay. So I can inflate this, slide my washer out so I can get behind it if I need to, and I can figure out why I have this problem. Now, does it help me get rid of the water? No, I'm going to need a submersible pump if I'm doing a washing machine. Okay. But this is a great tool. All right. So one of the things that everybody needs to know is, where's my model and serial information, and what is located whenever I find my model and serial plate. The model and serial plate is a piece of information that you got to have it, because if I'm doing a warranty claim, I've got to have the correct model and serial number, especially the model number with the dashes and the O's, and the serial number. I got to double check it. Okay. Here's a picture of my refrigerator. You can tell that this is a refrigerator from Electrolux. It also tells me that I have, it has R600 refrigerant in it. So that tells me that it's not required for me to recover it. The EPA hasn't come out and said you have to recover it, but I still really heartily suggest that you do put it in a bag, so that I don't have this, because this is basically a butane fuel. It's a derivative of butane. So it is highly flammable. And just because I am able to take and get that refrigerator out, and it looks like it's empty, I see 0 on my low side gauge, doesn't necessarily mean that there's 0, because what will happen is with R600 and many of the other flammable gas refrigerators and coolers and everything, we have to make sure that we've totally gotten everything out. What will happen is the refrigerator, the compressor will actually hold some of the Freon itself. So if I'm I'm going around and I have an open flame, it's very easy that I can cause a flash fire. Everybody knows that there's only three things that you need to have combustion, and that's air, the fuel, and then so where am I going to find it? Okay, here's a rating plate right here. This is a Sub-Zero. I showed you where it was on mine. If here's one for a Whirlpool. Also, if I have a side by side, most of the other refrigerators, it's either be on the top left or the top right. Usually, if you look at this one, you know that it's going to be on the right because you have the damper that's right there. Okay, so what information is actually on that? The model and serial plate. I'm going to have the model number, the serial number, what type of refrigerant I'm using, the amount of refrigerant that it is, my electrical rating. It's going to tell me what my defrost heater wattage is, and I'm going to use Ohm's law to tell me what that is. So you need to be very familiar with Ohm's law. Okay. Once again, this is mine. This is up on the left side of my refrigerator. So this is a 4-door refrigerator. Okay. One of the things that I'm going to do as I'm going down and checking with the customer is the customer comes to the door, I'm going to verify the complaint as I'm walking back to the unit. Then I'm going to make sure that the model and serial number is right. There's nothing worse than having one digit off on your model and serial number simply because somebody didn't get it correct whenever they typed the claim out. What used to kill me was whenever I worked for Circuit City, I would get a complaint and the complaint was broke. That's not a complaint. Okay, so if you have somebody that's working for you and they get the broke complaint, you need to have them sit down, number one, and ask for a picture. Okay, you want a picture of the model and serial plate. If I've got that, I can go ahead and look at it and I know what's in it. That way I can make sure that I have the correct stuff that I'm going to need. Then the other thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to try to work from the front as much as I can. Okay. I'm going to perform as many checks as I can from the front without having to pull the refrigerator. This all gets to that issue of pulling it out and causing damage to the floor. Okay. So I'm going to work as much as I can from the front of the refrigerator. Okay. If I'm going to have to move the product, I'm going to have to put down flooring protection. Okay. I'm going to divide the product in half. If it's an ice maker, use an ice maker to check to see if there's power to avoid pulling the refrigerator out if possible. If I have one, a good example of that is a Samsung refrigerator. I just moved one of the Samsungs that I had into the barn because I kept having issues with the ice maker itself. So that's just a suggestion. If I have a part and it's not a board, I can probably check and real quickly and check to make sure that if I have a part that I think is bad, I can always check that. Now, let's talk about the new GE Smart HQ. If I have a Smart HQ unit, which is the GE model, I don't need that. I can go and plug my Smart HQ into the port, look at my phone. The phone will actually tell me all the information that I could possibly ever need. Now, I will tell you that you can do it on a phone. I have an Apple laptop, and I can do it on the laptop. I can do it on any of the other devices that is out there. Okay. That I can get more information, and it gets it bigger so that I can actually see it a whole lot better. Like I have an iPad that I use if I don't have my laptop. Okay. So let's talk about troubleshooting. Okay. So the first thing I've got to do is I've got to be able to, on this one is a Samsung. And I'm going to I've got to know how to take it apart. So all gets back to what you need to do whenever you get the information on the call. I used to always sit down, I would have 12, 13 calls a day, and I would have to go and do a little bit of research, usually the night before whenever I got my list. They would give me the model number, the serial number, and then I would go and research anything that I needed to research. If I wasn't totally familiar with this, I can go and if I'm an authorized Samsung person, I can get anything that I need from Samsung on the refrigerator so that I know how to take it apart. That's if I don't know what it is. Okay. So here's a picture of that Samsung, and it now has the cover removed. You can tell that I have a pretty even pattern that goes all the way across. And then if this is a bottom mount refrigerator. So what happens with a Samsung if I have the drawer levers pulled out? What happens if the left drawer lever is pulled out on a Samsung? Does anybody know? I had a technician that I was training in class, and he couldn't figure out what the issue was. And the problem is what we're talking about right now. Okay. Somebody tell me, what will happen if this drawer is out? That's correct. The fan doesn't turn. Okay. The fan has a switch on the left side, and if I don't have that pushed all the way back in, then that fan will never turn. I had a technician that spent 30 minutes trying to find why the fan was out. He's like, "That's my problem. The fan is out. The fan is out. I need to replace it." I'm sorry. I told him, "Sorry, that's not right. That's incorrect." So you have to remember simple stuff, and that's the stuff that will drive you crazy, the simple stuff. So one of the other things is whenever I go and I take something apart, okay, I take a picture of it before I take it apart. That way, if something happens and it's not a Molenex plug and I'm taking wires off, I know exactly where those wires go. And I make sure that the picture that I take shows everything that I need. I may take 2 or 3 pictures just to be sure that I have everything that I need, so that whenever I go to put this back together, I have got it put back together. Because once again, if I put it back in wrong, if I put it back wrong, I'm probably going to have, hopefully I don't short the board out, but I'm also going to have something that's not going to work properly. Okay. So how do I know if my refrigerator is possibly low on Freon? Okay. We have already looked at it. We've seen the this frost pattern. We know that we have a problem with we either have a problem that the unit is low on Freon, or it has a restriction. Okay. So one of the things that I can do, I always carry it around in my pocket. Okay. Whenever I was with Circuit City, I had a shirt that had a spot for a pen. Well, instead of a pen, I carried a pocket thermometer. So if I'm checking my pocket thermometer, how do I know what the temperature is in the unit? I know that some of you guys love to use the infrared thermometers. I've got one. I don't really trust it. I can go and take my pocket thermometer, take it out, put the sleeve, put it in the sleeve, put it in a glass of ice water. Okay, ice water. That should read 32 degrees. If I get 32 degrees and my thermometer says it's 40, I can adjust my pocket thermometer down so that I know that I'm reading correctly. Okay, so that is the way that I was taught, and that's the way that I try to tell people. I always trust my pocket thermometer. Okay, so we get there, and the complaint from the customer is, it's not cooling. Well, that can be a wide variety of things. Could be the condenser coils are dirty. Okay, that could have been what was causing it not to work properly. The evaporator fan motor could not be working. The temperature control thermostat could not be working properly. The temperature, the thermistor might be faulty. The main circuit board could have a defect in it. The temperature control board could be defective. Today with all of the electronics that's in a refrigerator, it's hard to determine unless I have a smart HQ, and then it tells me what the problem is. It could be a bad thermistor. It could be the compressor is not working properly. The start relay of the compressor could be defective. The start capacitor could be defective. I've got to go through and check each one of these so that I know which am I actually having problems with. So I'm going to go through and I'm going to check each one of these. Okay. If I'm going to check the main control board, I'm going to check power in, and I'm going to check power out to my unit. So the power in usually is 120, and then it goes through the board, and usually it goes from AC to DC. Yes, it will be. Yes, Nathan, it will be online. Okay. Hey, John. So I'm going to check power in my board, usually somewhere through my board itself. There's a step down transformer or something, and I'm going to check it goes from AC to DC usually, and I'm going to check my DC voltage out. Once I do that, I'm going to go to the product, to the piece itself. If I have, let's say I have a bad fan motor, or I think it's bad. Okay, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to check it just like we showed in the other slide up here. Okay, I'm going to take my probe. You can tell that the fan motor is this bottom probe. I'm going to remove that, or actually I can take my meter leads, and I can actually, if I have the very small tips on my meter, I can use that, and I can check to see if I have my 12 volts DC going to the fan motor. If I don't have that 12 volts DC going to the fan motor, the first thing I'm going to do is now I'm going to unplug it. Okay. And then I'm going to stick my probes in there, and I'm going to make sure that I have 12 volts DC going to the probes. If I don't have 12 volts DC for that Molinex plug, the next thing I got to do is probably pull the unit out and check power into the board, and then check power out of the board. If I've got 12 volts DC coming out of the board and I have nothing to it, I've got to find the wire that's broken. You may be able to find it. You may not be able to find it. That's the problem. You have to find. I mean, we did some crazy stuff whenever I was working for Circuit City. I'll give you a perfect example. I had a door in a ice maker in a refrigerator that whenever it went up through the hole, went out, it actually the wire was broken. Well, that was not covered. This unit was like 4 or 5 years old. That was not covered under the warranty. So what did I do? I spliced the wire going into the plug. I got enough so that I could get my voltage through that plug so that I could get it out. Did it look great? No. Was it? If you had pulled it out and looked at it, the technician behind me, that had to work on it after me, probably was like, "Oh my God, this guy was an idiot." But at the time, that was the only way that I could get it to go, because that harness, I had no way to get to it. It was foamed in, so I couldn't get to it. So some of the times, as a technician, we have to be creative. I mean, that's part of our job description is creativity 101. Okay, so let's go back. Okay, so let's talk about the compressor. Each one of these, the compressor, we're going to get down to it and talk about it a little bit later. But the compressor itself has a cover, and we have to take it off to get to it. Okay. So let's see. One of the things that I can have, the unit has ice on the evaporator and it's not defrosting. So how would I know that? Okay. That I'm going to have that problem. I'm going to have that problem with that fourth slide on the other presentation where it was totally frozen up. That's what it could be. That's what it would be like. Okay. So I could have a defrost control board that was bad. I could have it. If I have a unit and it has a defrost timer on it, it could be that the defrost timer is bad. If I have an adaptive defrost control, it could be that I have a bad adaptive defrost control. How am I going to check all of that? Okay. How do I check that? I am going to go and I'm going to check power into it and I'm going to check power out of it. Simple as that. If I've got power into it and I have none power coming out of it after I forced it to go into a harvest, into a defrost cycle, I know that I got that part is bad. I could have a bad defrost sensor. Okay. I could have a bad defrost thermostat. Okay. What else could it be? It could be that the main control board, that's the last thing that I really worry about is the main control board. Usually that's the last thing that I check. Okay. But I will tell you that if I've got ice on the evaporator and it's not defrosting, the first thing I'm going to do is the defrost sensor. Okay. And then the defrost thermostat. I'm going to check both of those and make sure that both of those are good. Okay. So I can tell you a story. I used to be, whenever I was with Circuit City, I was based out of Atlanta. Actually, we're based out of Douglasville. That's where our office was. And one of the things that I did was I took a little bump in pay because I went to and spent a year in Birmingham, Alabama. And it's with Circuit City. They gave me a bump in pay for me to go help them with that office. So whenever I was there, in Alabama, I would find pieces of corn, peas, the little labels. People would just take and throw their stuff straight out of they got from the wherever they bought it. Those little labels, I found those in the drain. So what have I got to do is I've got to make sure that I get all of that out and then let the customer know, hey, this is not covered under warranty. If I get there and I found one that had about 5 or 6 pieces of corn, and it was just totally clogged. It had totally clogged the drain. So it's like, ma'am, I'm sorry, but this is not under warranty. I mean, that's a difficult thing to have with a customer, and you tell them, ma'am, I'm sorry. Here's your problem right here. And I always had somebody. If I had once I found the problem, I would get the customer and I would say, here's your problem. If you do this, it will never be under warranty. That's something that you can't have, is you can't just throw stuff in there. Now that's with the peas and with the corn and even the little. I'm okay a little bit with the labels that get popped off or during the frost cycle. That I can see, but whenever you just take and throw stuff in there, and that's all it was. The customer didn't put it in a bag. They just cut the bag open, and once they got done, they just threw it in the side, and it worked its way to the defrost drain. And hey, that's not a warranty. So what else could it be other than one of those? Could be that most of the units today have a drain heater. Either it is a piece of strap, or it actually is a drain heater. Some of the high end today have drain heaters, so that they don't have problems. It's nothing. There's nothing worse than having to blow out the drain, and then get it. It just blows out all over the back of the refrigerator. Not back of the refrigerator, down in the bottom, because they all are coming from the compressor. But I used to use nitrogen to blow that out so that I could make sure that I didn't have anything in it. Then there's a drain strap. Most of the ones today have a drain strap. If they don't, there's a kit that you can get. If I come and I find that the drain is frozen, I'm going to make it. I can make a drain strap. All I have to do is find myself a piece of number 10 wire, or number 12-2 or 14-2 wire. I can strap that around my defrost heater. If I have a cowl rod heater, I can wrap that and I can put that down into the drain, and I'm good to go. If I have one of the new and it has the solid state components, my defrost heater, I can't do that with. I'm just going to have to lengthen the defrost time on it. Okay. So my freezer section is cold, but the refrigerator section is warm. Could be my evaporator coils are frosted up. My temperature control board could be faulty. My evaporator fan motor is not working properly. My thermistor might be defective. Okay. The damper control assembly is not open properly. The defrost heater, the defrost control board could be defective. My defrost thermostat could be defective. My defrost timer is not working properly. And then the main control board might be defective. So the main thing that if I have a side-by-side refrigerator, I am always going to start and look at the damper control assembly. I'm going to make sure that is opening and closing properly. If not, I mean, they're not like they used to be. Whenever I first came, you could reach up and actually adjust the damper control assembly. And we used to do that because the milk would freeze if they put them on the top shelf and pushed it all the way to the back. It would freeze whatever was right there around that damper control. So you have to know where we're going and where that is. Okay. So here, once again, with the rails pushed in, the fan on the freezer should run. If not, why? Okay. If I pull the rail out, we already talked about, it won't, it's not going to, the fan motor's not going to work. Okay. So here's my 12 volts DC that I was talking about. I can, once I actually insert my probe right there, to the black and the white. Then once I do that, if I'm not reading 12 volts, I'm going to pull that out. I'm going to then move on, and I'm going to come right here, and I'm going to measure 12 volts for right here. If I don't have 12 volts right there, that's whenever we have to go to the board. And then we have to check power in and power out. If I have power out and it's 12 volts, that gets back to you gotta be creative. Sometimes there's nothing you can do, and you have to basically condemn the unit. Okay, my food in my refrigerator is freezing, so the temperature control thermostat can't be working properly. The thermistor might be defective. Okay, the main control board that powers this unit could be defective. The temperature control board also could have been my issue. My damper control assembly, I have to make sure that it's not broken or stuck open. Whirlpool side by sides, it used to be a common problem. It would either be broken or stuck, my damper control. Okay, my light in my refrigerator is not working. Well, you have to think. A lot of the times, most of the units now have gone to LED because of the functionality of it, and it's a much brighter light. But I'm trying to give it to you so that you have a total understanding. So if I come in and I open the door and my light in the refrigerator is not working, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm probably going to check the bulb. So I'm going to make sure that the light bulb is good itself. And I can do that. How? Okay. I can stick one probe on the very tip of the tip of it. And if I would go to the very side, and I'm going to ohm that out. And if that ohms out, then I know that that's not the problem, but it could be still. A lot of the times, by the time people take things in and take the bulbs in and take them out, depending on how old the refrigerator is, I may have to take a little piece of tin foil and put that on the very back of that and tighten that bulb, and then I've got contact. And then I know that now that I know that this is on a light bulb unit. Okay. The other thing, what else could be wrong is that the door switch could be not working properly. I've replaced many a door switch in my life. The constant opening and closing of the door causes that switch to be defective. Okay. It could be that the light socket itself is bad, or it could be that the LED is bad. So how am I going to know if the light socket is bad? I can actually pop that off, and I can go to the back side of that light socket, and I can check the voltage right there. Of course, that's 120 volts. So you have to make sure that you have it on 120 volts. If I have an LED, I'm going to swap it over, and I'm going to go to my DC voltage. It could be that my LED is defective. Right now, there's a rework for a bad LED junction. And one of the things with that, and you need to check with if I've got a bad LED, you need to check with your manufacturer, and I need to make sure that that is good, and I have good connections. I have seen them where somebody has taken and cut all that Molinex plug out and just wired it. I would not suggest that. I would fix it so that I had continuity going through my switch. Okay. The other thing that it could be, we already said, was the light switch could have been defective. Okay, so this is nothing like it used to be whenever I first started back in 1978. Okay, whenever we were starting, uh, units didn't run not nearly as long as they do now. They found that it is actually better for the unit, lengthens the longevity of the unit, for the compressor not to be cycling on and off so many times. Okay, so my unit is running all the time because that's the customer's complaint. I actually had a customer in Birmingham, Alabama, that timed it. It that this customer had way too much time on his hands. He told me that it ran for almost an hour and a half, and it cycled off um, for about 10 or 15 minutes, and then it would come back on. Well, what could that have been? It could have been that I had an air gap, that there was that it wasn't the door seals were not working properly. I mean, that could have been one of the issues that we could have had. One of the other things that could possibly be wrong is that the condenser fans are dirty. I mean, the condenser coils are dirty. If the condenser coils are dirty, they will run all the time, and you will take out the evaporator. I mean, the condenser fan or the compressor or both. Okay, it could be that it's set to like a um, minus 15 on it. It could be that the defrost assembly might be defective. I showed you that picture of that defrost assembly, or the defrost assembly where it caused the unit just to be frozen all the way up. Once again, the door gasket could be torn. Could be that the evaporator fan motor is not working properly. The defrost control board may be defective. The defrost timer might not be working enough. Whenever I say defrost control board and defrost timer, I'm talking about an older Whirlpool that actually had a defrost timer and a control board that ran that system. Then we have the main control board that could possibly have been defective. Okay. Okay. If the fan blade, here's something that I have learned as a technician. If the fan blade is slipping, I have gone in and the fan blade was slipping because something had gotten into the fan blade and stripped that little plastic out of the center of the fan. So what can I do? I actually can take and wrap that shaft with a little electrical tape. I can put my fan blade back on it. Take a gear clamp, little small gear clamp, and I can adjust that and tighten that down. At least now it's going to work properly until I get back. Okay, that's just a little That's a little tip for all of you new technicians. Okay. Not cooling complaints. Okay, we're going to open the freezer door. We're going to check and see if the back panel is frosted. I'm going to then, if that panel is frosted, I'm going to put it into a defrost. See if the defrost line dissipates. You're going to be standing there. You're going to put it into a defrost, and you're going to probably stand there and watch it and see if the frost line goes down. If no, then I'm going to remove the items from the freezer. I'm going to use my meter to check the bimetal, and then I'm going to check the heater to see if it works. If I've got no frost on the panel, I'm going to feel the sides of the refrigerator. I'm going to see if it's warm/hot, or if if I get that, I'm going to place flooring protection down if I got no heat, right there on the sides of the refrigerator. And then I'm going to remove the screws from the back panel, feel the compressor to see if it's running, feel the suction line. You can readily touch the suction line and not worried about it. If I reach and grab the hot gas side, I can get burned. You got to be careful. Okay, so I'm going to check that. If the discharge line is hot, and I can, and that tells me that I've got the compressors okay. If I have one where the discharge line is just not even lukewarm, I know that I probably got either a bad compressor, a bad I'm going to have a restriction in the system, or I have got a freon leak. So I am now going to have to go and find that leak. Okay. So that was where we had talked about the 3 different ways to do it. If I'm got an R600 unit, that is a highly flammable refrigerant. Okay. So I can use a snubber. If I have 134A, I have 2 methods that I can do. The first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to throw some gas in it, and I'm going to fire it back up, and I'm going to look for a leak. Usually my leaks are going to occur in the evaporator section. One of the manufacturers out there, they are world renowned for an evaporator leak. So you have to know your product. So that as a technician gets newer, gets more knowledge, and moves from entry-level technician to a mid-level technician, and then from a mid-level technician up to one of the technicians that everybody comes to for their problems. That's what I always wanted to do. I wanted to be that guy that everybody came to and asked knowledge. Like I said, whenever I first started, we did not have cell phones. We had a 2-way radio. So what I would do is, as a technician, and I was just starting out, I would go and see if I could find one of the other guys that was a little more experienced than me with the product, and I would take and pick his brain as to what I should check. Okay. So one of the other things that I'm going to check is just make sure that my compressor is working properly. I'm going to check my overload, and then my start run capacitor. And then I'm going to check and make sure that my compressor is not shorted to ground. If I've got any of those, I've got to have a compressor job that I'm going to have to do. Doesn't matter if it's 134A, R600. It could be R134A, R600, 12, 22. If you have 12 or 22, you cannot find a decent drop-in that works forever. I have yet to find a good drop-in for 12. I still have an old old refrigerator, and once it goes, it's going to go. I'm just going to have to junk it. But I still have to remove all the refrigerant out. Okay. So common issues in the drain area. So my drain being clogged, that's number one. Plastic, vegetables, just goes on and on. So if I have something in there, I'm going to have to remove it. I always take and use my steamer. I have seen pictures of guys pouring hot cups of water down it. I am not going to use any more water than I have to absolutely use, because I'm going to be having the I'm going to, whenever I get and start moving it down, if I'm already pouring water on it, I'm going to take and overfill the drain, and and it's usually mounted on the top of the compressor, and then it will just actually run all over the floor, and then you have to clean your floor up. So usually I can start out melting all that ice with a couple of towels and my steamer. Okay, so I'm going to empty around the area so that I can clear up everything for that stop drain. Then I'm going to get, like I said, towels on the steamer. I'm going to place the towels around the area that I'm going to be cleaning, and I may even actually add a towel into the pan, the drain pan that's sitting on top of the compressor. Whenever I come in, I always have my steamer and my towels in a 5-gallon bucket. That way I can keep using the same towels over and over. Whatever you do, don't ask the customer for a towel. Please don't do that. People get funny about that. Okay. So I'm going to show the customer the affected area for the drain and why it was that way. Then once again, I'm going to have to tell the customer if I've got these little peas or something like that. I'm like, ma'am, you have to clean these off. If you can't have this. If you do, then you're always going to be calling me, and I don't mind coming to here, but you probably don't want to pay that $150 bill for me to unclog your drain. Okay. So ask when if something happens. Let's talk about noises. Okay. One of the things that used to drive me crazy as a technician was noises, because it never fails. Whenever I got there was no noise. So I tried to come up with solutions. Everybody's got a phone today. Ask the customer to record it and then have them send it to you. Okay. Otherwise it's pardon my expression, it's a crapshoot. You don't ever know that you're actually getting the problem. And there's one thing that you don't want is to have a return call, because if it's within the first 30 days, within the next 30 days, I don't know about you, but we didn't have a trip charge that we had to charge. We couldn't charge a trip charge. So, I mean, that's something that drives a customer, a technician crazy. Okay. So where does the consumer think the unit it's coming? I used to ask them, hey, will you open the door, see if it gets louder in the freezer? Close that door, open the door of the refrigerator. Does it get louder there? Just trying to find it. Listen to if you can lean down and get the back of the refrigerator, get around to the back of the refrigerator, see if it gets noisier then. We had a Whirlpool at one time back in the 70s that whenever it cycled off, you had a gurgling sound. It literally made a gurgling sound. And what they found was that that whenever the gas was equalizing, that's where your gurgle came. Okay. If you're unable to find the noise, then you're gonna have to worry about another trip. And that's, like I said, that's one of the things that used to drive me crazy. Okay. So we had talked about my compressor. There are components in the compressor. So I'm going to unplug my compressor. I'm going to unplug my unit. I'm going to get around to the back of it. I'm going to take depending on what unit it is, anywhere from 8 to about 24 screws off the back of the compressor. Okay. Once I get that so that I can see get to the back of the compressor, I'm going to look for this little box. They all have some kind of little box. This happens to be one of the newer boxes. And if it's an older box, you're going to be able to identify it as soon as you remove it. Okay. As I said, these are the components right here that are inside it. If I have one of the new units, I'm going to have an overload that looks like the one on the left, and then my start relay looks like the one on the right. The units that I have today, I've got both of them. Okay. I actually have one of the ones that has a solid state, and then I have the ones that have the old style um, TDR relay. Okay, so my relay, my overload. This is my solid state. If you ever come up and you find somebody has put this run capacitor in here, you probably want to disconnect it because they probably need a compressor. Do not put a run capacitor on a unit. Okay. Here's the P. I'm sorry, it was a PTC relay. So I have a PTC relay. Okay. So I'm going to use my own meter for this. I'm going to go between terminals 2 and 3. The ambient temperature, air temperature, should be near to those presented. If the PTC relay is a 18X, I should have somewhere around 2.8 to 5.2 ohms. If my PTC relay is a 7MR M4R 7000X, and one of those the other two, I should get somewhere between 3.8 to 5.6 ohms. So as you look through this, you're going to find that it's usually going to be somewhere between 2 and 7 ohms. Okay. One of the old ones, one of the newer ones, just before they went to the electromagnetic relay, you see those are somewhere between 14 and 26 ohms. But I still am going to check it for ohms. Once I do that, I can flip that relay, PTC, the relay upside down. You can usually feel it, and it will drop. And then if it drops, then my ohms don't work. So I know that I've got a bad PTC relay, and you can replace those. Those are replaceable. Okay, so we had talked about going and searching for making sure that it's not shorted to ground. Okay, so if I go between the common, which is the C, you can see it's labeled right there. The C is my common, and my start relay, I should get somewhere between 3 and 11 ohms. If I get a common in a run, I should get somewhere between 1 and 8 ohms. Then any compressor pin and ground with infinite resistance tells me that it's open and I got a bad one. The inverter compressor, I'm going to get somewhere between 6.2 and 11 ohms between any two pins. This is on an inverter compressor. So I need to know what kind of compressor it is. Okay. Does anybody have any questions? We're already at an hour and 8 minutes. Okay, we're going to move on here. We got a lot to cover. So I had told you about ice makers. As we're coming into refrigeration season, you're going to get a whole bunch of ice maker calls. My ice maker in my refrigerator doesn't work. I just replaced one in a Samsung unit about a week ago, and it's still not working. So I have to go back and figure out what the problem is. Okay, so my ice maker is not working. I'm going to verify that the ice maker is not frozen up. If it's not frozen, I'm going to verify that I have water coming into the ice maker. So how do I do that? I'm going to have to cycle that ice maker. Okay. Then I'm going to check the components and that I think might be failing. So I'm going to have to do all that. So if I have no ice in the bucket, the first thing that I got to know is that the unit is not above 10 degrees Fahrenheit. If it is above 10 degrees Fahrenheit, the ice maker will never work. Okay. The water inlet valve could be faulty. So I'm going to have to check and make sure that's why I want to cycle the unit. Okay. Could be that my ice maker itself is defective. It could be that my ice maker module is defective. This is especially true on a Whirlpool Amana product. Low water pressure could be part of my problem. and that will usually cause it to cycle when it's not when it's not when it's not when it's not ready to dispense the ice. Okay, so then I could have a bad door switch. I could have a bad ice level control if the board fails. Could be that my ice maker mold thermostat could be defective. Once again, this is normally on either one of the old units. It could be an LG. Could be a Frigidaire. Could be an Amana. Could be a Maytag. Could be any derivative of Whirlpool. It could be even an old GE. Okay, then it could be that my ice maker itself, that switch could be defective, and then I want to make sure that I don't have a clogged water filter. Okay, if I have ice in the bucket, or if the bucket's overflowing, that tells me that I have one of two problems. Usually, that tells me that the ice maker cubes are not releasing properly. My water pressure from the home supply could be part of that problem. Then the ice maker water valve could be defective. The ice maker assembly itself could be defective. What it tells me, if I have ice that's frozen in the bucket, or the bucket itself is overflowing, I have one of two problems. I have some problem with the ice when it's not releasing properly, or I have a bad ice switch that shuts the ice maker off. Okay. With Samsung, this is my favorite. I'm telling you right now, if you work on Samsung, you're this time of year, you're going to start getting calls and you're going to enjoy it. Okay. So one of the things with a Samsung refrigerator, I have to know my dispenser buttons. So the one that I'm going to talk about right now is their 20 it's a 26 cubic foot that has 4 doors. Okay, and it has on the dispenser assembly, it will have many of these same right here. Okay, so it looks just like this. So what am I going to do? I'm going to press and hold the freezer button and the lighting button. Okay, I have to hold that for approximately 7 seconds. Okay, whenever I do that, it's going to kick it over into the service mode. Okay, so once I do that, I'm going to press the freezer button for 3 seconds until it turns the power furizer on. Okay, then the center button allows for the chime, and then with energy saver, the mullion heater. Those are the dispenser buttons. Okay, so out of here, after I've pressed the top left and the center one on the right, that's gonna be 8 seconds. Okay, once that unit will change the display. Then I'm gonna have to scroll through those modes by hitting the lighting button, and that advances me through. If you're depending on how you need to scroll through the modes, pushing the lighting button until you reach FD. Okay, that's forced defrost. So once I've got my forced defrost, now comes the fun part. It can be anywhere from 20 minutes up to an hour. It depends on how frozen up that ice maker is. I have had them go 20 minutes, and I have had them go actually 2 hours because I had to do it again. Luckily, it was at my parents' house, so I didn't worry about it. Okay, if you're unable to remove the bucket, or the unit is still not defrosted, I'm going to have to manually defrost it. Do not use a heat gun. Only use a steamer. If you use a heat gun, you will cause this to warp in there, and you will have bought a refrigerator. Okay. My sensor assembly buttons. Now, how am I going to check this? Well, I just forwarded through because that was part of my other presentation. So I'm going to check the ice maker sensor resistance. Okay, I'm going to compare it with the temperature table after I measure it. I'm going to check the mode of the ice maker uh, sensor voltage. I'm going to measure the voltage of the sensor from point number 6 to point number 5 on the PCB. I'm sorry, 51 on the PCB, which is the number 4 wire. So you can see it right there where they're going, and they're measuring that. I'm going to compare the temperature table after I measure it. My common PCB to ground, that's going to tell me if it's shorted. And if it's shorted, then I've got to replace that whole thing. Okay, if I have ice buildup causing, how do I get this unit out? The first time you do this will drive you crazy. I'm going to check for leaks around the ice maker by shining the light down the side of this refrigerator. If I see light down that side, I've got to plug that up. You can do it. They have tape that you can use. I prefer to take a little silicone, clear silicone, and seal that whole area around it. That's what I did with my dad's. Then I'm going to have to put it into the force defrost. I have to be very careful whenever I defrost it. Once I do this, I'm going to drop this bottom of this ice maker, and I'm going to have to separate it. If I do this incorrectly, okay, first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take these 2 screws out. I'm sorry, I got ahead of myself. That screw right there, I have to take it out, and then I have to pull this little plate out and move it. That exposes the wiring harness. I got ahead of myself. I apologize. Then I have to take this other screw out that I'm showing you. Then I'm going to prise it to the right and down. Okay. That allows me to do this. This is whenever, if you look at the one on the left here, you can see that is totally frozen. So I have to put it into force defrost. Once I do that, hopefully it's going to look like this. Okay. Once I do that, I have to be very careful. This unit has Freon running through it at this little U joint. Okay. That's what freezes the ice maker. If I have to be very careful whenever I separate the ice maker and this refrigerant line. If I don't and I break that line, or it cause it to break, I have now bought a refrigerator. Okay. So once I do that, I can push this button. I can push that button down and then slide the ice maker forward, pull the ice maker down and slightly disengage the clips, remove the ice maker from the refrigerator. Then I can click the harness by depressing the tab and routing the wire that's in place. So there's a picture of it right there. One of the things that I have got to be sure is I've got to make sure that cavity at least looks as clear as it is right there. There are 3 different things that are out there. Actually, there's about 5 or 6, but there's 3 that are worth mentioning. If something happens and I replace this, there's a little. If you look at the very back, there's a red in that top one. There's a little red piece right there. They make a little clip that snaps in that keeps that unit up so that it stays up near the bottom, and it will defrost. It will allow the ice to eject. The other thing that they have found before I put this ice maker back in, I have got to look at this and make sure that I have the correct insertion depth, because they found that whenever they were putting some of these in, they were either sticking way too far down and it was causing it to splash, or it wasn't far enough down and it was causing it to splash. This one is right. It's just about level. You can look at it. You can use your mirror, and that will show me where it is. Okay. Make sure to place the down your floor protection. Okay. So Whirlpool of Mana. My very favorite ice makers in the world. I can't stand the new ice makers. I'll be honest. That's my old self talking. Okay. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to remove the front cover of this ice maker. Doesn't matter if it's a Mana, doesn't matter if it's a Whirlpool, doesn't matter if it's a Roper, doesn't matter if it's a Whirlpool or one of its derivatives. Yeah, I'm going to remove this ice maker. That will expose test points in the module. Okay, the test points can be used to test the components and initiate an ice cycle harvest. Okay, checking between test points L and N with a voltmeter set to the appropriate AC scale will confirm that the presence you have 120 volts to the ice maker. The source of voltage is present, and that ice is down to temperature. The ice maker should start cycling. If the unit fails to the initial harvest, I need a jumper wire that I'm going to use for a short piece. I used about 6 inches of 12-2 solid core. Okay, so to cycle the ice maker, insert the jumper wire between T and H. You can see it right there. It's on that bottom right side. Okay, the wire, you've got to have it insulated. You're getting voltage, so it will shock you. And you're already in a moist environment, so it's really bad. Okay, so after 5 to 10 seconds, the ice maker will start. Okay, it will pause while the mold heater heats the ice. Okay, so here it is right here. So if I have on the side of it, there's an adjustment screw. Clockwise decreases, counterclockwise increases. If I turn it a quarter of a turn, that's 10 cc's of water that I get. Okay, that's that adjustment screw that's on the right hand side over there. Okay, there's my adjustment window at the bottom, and then my factory settings is just was started. Okay, Frigidaire. This is also I also like this. Okay, Frigidaire, it could or could not have this on-off switch. Same thing with GE. Most of the time, the GE did not have this on-off switch. So how do I cycle the ice maker? Okay, so what I'm going to do, if I have the Frigidaire and the GE IM16, okay, this is what it looks like. Okay, that's my motor gear right there. Then I have a timing gear. Then I have my water fill adjustment. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to now take, I can do one of two things. I can pull on these very gently, very gently. If you strip it, you're going to break the gear. If you break the gear, you have to replace it. Okay, but what I can do is I can insert a screwdriver in this Phillips head area, and I can turn it. You can tell right there, it tells you to turn it clockwise. So I am going to turn that clockwise. Once I get this up to about if I'm looking at the ice maker itself and thinking of it as a clock face, once I get it up to about the 10 to 11 o'clock position, where the ice maker, you see it right here, that's going to start my harvest. That's about the 10 to 11 o'clock position. Okay. That's how I get this one to start. Then once I get this one to start, I now have to check and I have to see if everything is working properly. One of the things that it was always once I pop this cover off, the first thing I'm looking for as I look is to see if any of these gear cogs have actually been broken. You can find them, the gear itself broken, or just the gear cog to the ice maker ear is broken. So I have to make sure that which one of those. If I've got either of those, I'm going to have to replace that part. The one thing about an old ice maker, everything was replaceable. Okay, I could actually replace the heater. I could replace that gear motor. I could replace that timing gear. If I had a water fill and I needed to adjust it, you can look at it right there. If I'm turning this thing clockwise, if I'm turning it, if I'm moving that little arm in, okay, that's giving me less water. If I'm pulling it out, that's giving me, if I'm turning it counterclockwise, that's giving me more water. It was much easier to work on than it is today. Okay, my Frigidaire IM 1747. This is the way it looks today. You're going to have to go into the ice maker. First thing I'm going to do is remove that bucket. Then I'm going to depress the tab by inserting a flat-bladed screwdriver into it. You can see it's right there. Okay. By depressing the tab, it releases the cover to the ice maker, then pull the cover forward. Once I do that, it reveals the ice maker. Once I do that, I can take a flat-bladed screwdriver, insert it as shown in the picture. You see it right there. Pry the tab out and slide the ice maker out using the other hand. Okay? That's how I change this ice maker out. Okay? I've got one question for everybody. Does anybody have a question? We're almost done. We have about 12 or 13 more slides. So tell me if you have any questions now. Okay. GE Smart HQ in the pre 2017. With Smart HQ, the easiest thing to do. Okay. The only thing with a Smart HQ is that I have to buy things. Okay. I have to buy a subscription to GE, but on the other side, what do I get for my prescription? What do I get for my subscription fee? I get all of the latest uploads, downloads. I can actually, a lot of the times with the new Smart HQ, I can download the software and send it to the refrigerator. And some of the times that takes care of my problem. All it needed was a software download. Okay. One of the other things that it tells me is it will tell me what the problem is. I mean, that's what I love about the Smart HQ. If I have an ice maker issue, I can tell it, I need you to cycle the ice maker. It'll cycle the ice maker. If I think that I have a bad fan, I can actually cycle the fans on and off. One of the things that you don't have with anybody else right now, this GE will tell me exactly how many times the door has been open and how long it's been open. So that is such a feather to put in my cap. That's something I've got. That's almost something I got to have. There's nothing worse than customer telling you, "Oh, my kids don't stand in front of the refrigerator." No, it ain't the kids. It's you. You got to know how many times that door has been opened and closed, and how many times, how long it has been. And so it's invaluable information. It also will give me almost anything that I need to know about the refrigerator. Talking about refrigerators, it's not just for refrigerators, it's any GE product, and you have a full gamut, so you're able to do anything with it. So I love it. Okay. Once again, I can do a firmware update. I can get any kind of alert information. It gives me any of my fault codes and the model specific service documentations. It will tell me any service record information. If I've got any service bulletins, it'll spit those out for me. So it's really a great thing. That's the reason that I say don't use your phone. Use an iPad or a tablet. This is where it is. You can go to Encompass and buy it. This is what you get in the kit. It's $199.99. Okay. Without it, here's your old GE. Okay. Same thing that you had with the old Frigidaire. Okay. LG Craft Ice. We're going to quickly go through LG Craft Ice. I had a customer that I know that called me and said my Craft Ice is not working. I actually love Craft Ice. I do drink bourbon on occasion, and I do like the craft ice because it doesn't melt so fast. Okay, so here's what it looks like whenever it's coming in. You can tell that the water comes in, it falls down a trough, and then it's inserted into the ice maker itself. When the ice maker cycles, this is what it looks. The craft ice actually looks like. Okay, it looks like just like this in it. Okay, it's a 2-inch ball, so it's great for that. Okay, there's an on-off switch. Okay, if it's turned on, then turn it off and reset the ice maker. Wait 18 to 30 hours for it to reset. Then you can tell the customer to turn it back on whenever you leave, and it should reset the unit. And it should work. If the ice maker doesn't produce ice, put it into the test mode. I would check this before I ever did all of it, before I told the customer it was going to be 20-something hours. I'm going to remove the ice bucket, place a large pan underneath the space of where the ice bucket was. Okay. Then I'm going to press the test button for 3 seconds. Once I do that, that has put this into a test mode. Okay. It will verify water supply. It will verify the ice making, and it will verify the harvest. Okay. After the test is completed, I can take and replace the bucket, and it'll be ready it'll already start. Okay. So I can remove the front panel, take out the drawer, take the tray out, take out the right side screw first. You can see it right there. Okay. Remove the top screws right there. If I'm having to change the ice maker itself, there's both sides of it that I have to remove. Pull the ice maker out gently to expose the Mullinex connector. Once I expose that Mullinex connector, I can unplug it, put my new ice maker in, and be done. Okay, we are now done. Okay, I apologize. We had a whole lot of information trying to cover, and we at the very end we seemed to get I got a little faster. But does anybody have any questions? Okay. I'm going to ask you to please watch this short video. It's about 1 minute and 30 seconds. And then if you have any questions, my information is scrolling across the bottom of the screen. Just let me know. You can reach me via text or via email. Thanks, and everybody have a great day. Our next class will be R600, theory and usage.